A very good evening to you. Welcome to the West Ham Weekly on the West Ham Voice. 45 minutes earlier. Is it going to work? I really don't know. Because I guess people become acclimatized, accustomed to you doing a show and doing them at certain times of the week, certain times of the day, etc. So when I throw a curveball out there and suggest that I might be coming on 45 minutes early, I'm taking a massive gamble. Let's see if it works. If it doesn't work, I'm back to 9:15 next Monday. If it does work, I'll leave it at 8:30. So I hope you're all doing well. I hope you've had a good start to the week and not too disappointed about the defeat against Manchester City at the weekend. I'm going to talk a little bit about that and give you an update on all things West Ham and, of course, transfers. Who would have thought, given that the transfer window was shut on Friday, that we'd be talking about transfers on Monday? But I'll give you an update on all of that. But first of all, we've got to send our best wishes to John Pansel. Now, for those of you who may or may not have heard, John Pansel was ex-West Ham United player, of course. He was involved in quite a serious car accident earlier today, and we wish him the best. We wish him the best. Apparently, he's in a stable condition, and let's hope that he gets through it in okay. Now, if you're new to the channel, you know what I'm going to say. If you're new to the channel, if this is your first time on the West Ham Voice and the first experience of the West Ham Weekly, please do go and hit that like button, and please do consider becoming a subscriber of the channel. All the content is free, so become part of the West Ham Voice family. So we're going to talk about the game. We're going to talk about the squad that we now have, given that we may have one more transfer coming in. And we're also going to talk about the transfers that have happened and where does that leave us in terms of the squad, in terms of who plays, where they play, and so on and so forth. But before we do all that, we do the usual and go into the chat and wish everyone good evening. Toha, first tonight. 2030, Stella's all over the place with the times. 2031, you might be right. Good evening to you, Danny boy. I hope you're well, mate. Good evening, usual. I hope you've all had a good weekend. Toha, this rumour ticks all the boxes for the young, mobile, pacey striker we need. Stuff of dreams. No young, pacey striker that is available, that as far as I'm aware. Usual. One news outlet is saying West Ham are looking at John Egan on a free. Surely we can't be that desperate. Good evening to you, Anthony. Says a lot about our academy if we have to shop in the basement of football and scrape the bottom of the barrel. Galispera Sarif, I hope you're well, mate. Thank you for joining. Who else have we got in here? Good evening to you, Shaky. I hope you're well. Danny boy is doing things that, smoking a fat sack. Smoking a fat sack. Mark, good evening, mate. I think Matip is a sensible option where we're going to talk a little bit more about him in a short while. Great experience from his time with Liverpool, and I will believe he will bring good depth to the squad if he is the man we go for. Darren, good evening to you. Depay, not that I've heard of. I believe Depay is on his way to Brazil, of all places, is my understanding. Good evening to you, Epic. I hope you're well. Joel Matip is old and injury prone. We can't make signings like these anymore if we want to progress. I'm inclined to agree. We'll talk about him in a little while. Howard, I hope you're well, mate. Thank you for joining. Good evening to you, James H. All disappointing but not unexpected results at the weekend. I was pleased with the performance. I think we have a nice squad depth and quality. Just international break now. One now, one next month, one the month after. Something's got to be done about that. Danny boy, please know to Memphis, anyone called Memphis has got to be a cop. Good evening, Daniela. I hope you're well. Good evening to you, Matt. How are you? I hope you're well. Good evening, CC. Disappointed with the result against City, but proud of the boys. We'll talk about that game in a moment. Good evening to you, Glenn. Matip, 33, injury prone, and we need a speedy forward. And this is the thing, isn't it, with players who are, I mean, the one I wanted as what was Mario Hermoso, the centre back Mario Hermoso, who I believe has signed or is signing for Roma. He's the one I would have loved to have had. A centre back, left footed, also plays as at left back. He could have filled 2 spots there, couldn't he? Bloody hell. Shaky, are you giving stuff a bung? Good evening, James. I hope you're well. Good evening, Mandy. 8:30 is better. Is that 8:30 or is that 8 so is better? 8:30 is better. Look, if you guys like 8:30, I'll keep it at 8:30. But let's see how it goes. I'll have a look at the numbers and see how it goes throughout the evening. I do want to bring them in earlier because I'm kind of assuming that more people would want to watch a little bit earlier rather than going into the middle of the night. Toha. All the beautiful people say, hey, all the beautiful singing to you all. Wasim, good evening, mate. I hope you're well. Wish Pencil a full and speedy recovery. Absolutely. Sending a lot of love to a lot of hammers love to John Pencil. Juha, good evening, mate. I hope you're well. Thank you for joining. Good evening, Bill. How are you? Free agents are free for a reason. Those without issues have been signed up quickly. Those still looking are a risk, in my opinion. Like I said, Hermoso would have been absolutely ideal. I am worried at the players that we're looking at potentially going for. But I will talk about, certainly about Matip, because I believe he is the favourite to sign at this moment in time. Aaron, good evening, mate. The one time you're on time, I'm late. Tevez Pyatt, how are you, mate? Good evening to you, Shaky. I hope you're well. One happy Welsh hammer here. Good for you. We're all happy, aren't we? We should always be happy. Hammer 84. Good evening, mate. I hope you're well. From the Lees. Good evening, mate. Thank you for joining. Good evening to you, Obsidian. Good evening, Kevin. How are you, mate? I hope you're well. Bill, if we are now looking at free transfers at this stage, why did we not renew Oggie's contract? You beat me to it. Should we have kept Ogbonna, given that we're in this situation? Good point, mate. Good point. Glenn, good evening, mate. Martial played under Lopetegui at Seville. He sure did. So surely would have snapped him up by now if he was decent. Didn't have a great time there. If anyone watched my show this morning, I talked about 4 potential transfers this morning. Memphis Depay, Anthony Martial, and name's gone, Joel Matip, and one more central defender whose name is completely gone. Oh, yes, Hummels. And Martial indeed did play for Lopetegui. 12 games, I believe it was. 1 goal, 1 assist. So he didn't set the world on fire. Toha, if Depay goes to Brazil, Tim can scout him next year on his annual trip. Shaky, just found out 6-7 Tevez away shirt. Thought I'd lost it. Nice one. Good evening, good afternoon to you, Gary. I hope you're well, mate. Good evening to you, James. Greetings from South Africa. Wouldn't mind signing Anthony Martial if we can keep him fit. And this is the thing about free transfers, as just been said. There's a reason why they're free at this stage, if they haven't already been snapped up. Garino, good evening, mate. I hope you're well. Daniela, I see enough in the last 3 games to say we're going to have a good season. Don't forget we played 3 top 10 sides, one being the best team in the league. One could argue probably in Europe, or the best team, the best domestic team in the world. I'm all right with picking up Matip. We just need cover. He won't be starting most of the time, which is a good point. Absolutely. Steve, good evening to you, mate. I hope you're well. 8:30 p.m. is good. Thank you. Garino, didn't Loppy freeze Martial out because he did not like his effort? That I don't know. All I know is it didn't go that well. Well, let's get into the show, shall we? Let's talk about the game itself on Saturday. Now, I've done it to death. I did a review straight after the game that evening, and I've also done a reflection, which you may have watched on Sunday as well. Look, we were introduced to our latest signing, our new number 4, which, of course, is Carlos Soler, presented to the fans before the game. And also, quite fittingly, we paid tribute to Sven-Goran Eriksson as well. And well played to the West Ham fans who sort of saluted him, paid good tribute to him. Now, the team selection, I kind of got that right. Apart from the bench, I didn't get right. But in terms of the team selection, I got it spot on. I predicted that Wan-Bissaka would start. I also predicted that. Oh no, actually, I didn't get it right because I predicted that Füllkrug would start, but Antonio started instead. Look, Alvarez was back. Who played okay. I kind of expected there to be that double defensive midfield pivot, given that we were playing Man City, and for a long periods of the game, for long spells, we did okay. I think the team looked good. I think we had a really good, solid start to the game. But then, of course, we gave the ball away. I made a mistake post match and suggested it was Alvarez that gave the ball away, but it was actually Emerson, a misplaced pass to Paquetá. And I can't really blame Paquetá for his not being able to control the ball because it was quite far. You know, he's tried to stick a foot out, but all it did was just play Man City in. And you make mistakes against a team like Manchester City. They don't need an invitation to go and score a goal. And before we knew it, and I don't want to say it was the runner play because it sounds a bit odd when you're playing Manchester City because you do expect a team like Manchester City to dominate. But it just felt like with the start that we had, it did feel like it was a little bit against the run of play. And before we knew it, down to an error. For me, of the 3 goals they scored, 2 were errors, the first one and the third goal. And in between, their second goal was class. The way they moved the ball around, the way that Haaland found space in our penalty box. I mean, it was packed. How on earth? I mean, we backed off him, but how on earth did he manage to find space, dink it to his left and then shoot? Great shot, you know? But what happened throughout the game was Areola, he kept us in it with some of the superb saves that he pulled off. Now, he picked up a bit of a back injury, but he has been called up and he has gone out with France squad. I'm kind of hoping they say, look, mate, better for you to recuperate and go back to West Ham. He kept us in it. I think he was good. But of course, he was substituted at halftime. Emerson was not at his best. Like I said, it was his misplaced pass that led to their first goal, which was a real shame. I like Emerson, but he certainly won. It's interesting when Paquetá doesn't play well, Emerson seems to follow suit, and he wasn't at his best either. Wan-Bissaka, what can you say about him? Both sides of the field, you know, played it right back at the beginning of the game, and later on in the game, he played over at left back. Superb. What a steal for £15 million, plus whatever add-ons we've added. You know, an absolute steal for that. Wan-Bissaka is going to be an excellent player for us. What do you say about up front? I don't want to be harsh and I don't want to be critical of individual players, but we can see, you look at the difference between what Man City have got. Erling Haaland hardly touched the ball in the second half. He had 1 touch. Well, he had 2 touches. He controlled it and then he scored in the second half. But we don't have that level of striker, and it makes a big difference. And Antonio, you know, as hard as it, you know, he endeavours, he's not the answer to our front line. And I'm going to talk about what I believe we should be doing up front. Many are going to question, and many have already started to question, whether Füllkrug is the answer as well. My belief is that we've got to play Füllkrug to his strengths. Let's not, hopefully, I hope Lopetegui is not going to do much of what Moyes did over the past few years, where you have a striker who doesn't fit your system and you're not playing, you know, to his strengths. And I want to see, and at this moment in time, I'm holding court because I still believe that Lopetegui is trying to get a lot of players match fit, you know, and I do think that we will see changes to accommodate Füllkrug to his best. Maybe even accommodate Antonio. But people are asking questions about Füllkrug. It's not fair on Füllkrug at the moment because I don't think we're playing to his strengths. But, you know, it's good that we actually saw West Ham trying to make changes. Look, when you've got a striker like Haaland, that's the difference up front. You know, and what they do, Man City, is they know immediately when they get the ball, they just play it to him. You know, because they know 9 times out of 10, you know, I think we early in the game, he had a header, didn't he? Went way over the bar and we took the piss saying, oh, how rubbish is he? And we were joking because we know that he needs, you know, 2 chances, he'll score 1. in a game. I think he had overall, I think we maybe have had maybe 5 chances in total and he scored 3 goals. He makes a huge amount of difference to any team. Now, I do ask, is it time, or is it this moment in time, given that the Antonio thing doesn't really work for us, and at the moment Fulkrug is still trying to find his match fitness, is it time that we start looking at potentially putting Jared Bowen up front? I don't have an issue with putting Jared Bowen up front. I think he could be really well. We've seen that he can be really effective in the front line, because what it also does, it helps us with this player. It helps us with Mohamed Kudus. I'm worried about him, and I've said it several times over. I'm worried about him playing on the left-hand side. It's not that he's no good on the left-hand side. He hit the bar, and if that had gone in the second half, it would have been 2-2, maybe a completely different game. And he's got pace, he's got speed, he's got great control. The ball sticks to him. It almost doesn't matter where you put him, but it would matter more, or he'll be better for the team if he was playing centrally or if he was playing out on the right. And to do that, I guess you've got to tinker with the team. And that's why I'm asking the question. And I'll continue to ask it until we seem to get it right up front. Should Jared Bowen be the player that goes up front, put Mohamed Kudus out on the right, and then Crescencio Somerville to go out on the left? Or Lucas Paqueta to go out on the left. I think we need to do something. It's not that I'm worried about not scoring goals. I think we've got more than enough to score goals. That wasn't our problem last season. Our problem was defending goals rather than scoring. Look, as I said a moment ago, Lopetegui tried to make changes. We had to make the change at half-time with the goalkeeper, but on 71 minutes, he brought Soufal on. He put Wan-Bissaka out on the left side because Emerson just wasn't really doing it, to be honest with you. And he made changes like, I think Somerville came on a bit later, so that's a mistake in that slide. He puts Fulkrug on and so on. He puts the players like Souček on. And it's good to see that the manager is making changes to try and affect the game, because I think what will happen is once all these players find their match fitness, we'll start seeing more and more changes, and maybe sooner rather than later. My apologies, I got the slides mixed up. That should have been the slide for 71 minutes, and this should have been the slide for later on in the game. I do apologize, but the point is, this manager is not afraid to make changes. He's not afraid to bring players off in order to put other players on to try and affect the game. And I like that. And it's something that we suffered with, isn't it, with regards to David Moyes, that he always kept the same team, same formation, whereas Lopetegui will be happy to make team changes. Now, it goes into our squad. This, at the moment in time, I've got a question mark over Matip, and I've got a question mark over we might get another striker in this, in terms of free agents. Now, from what I hear, it should only be Matip, and I think that will be our lot. And I understand getting someone like Matip in because, as people have said in the chat, it gives us cover. And if Matip comes in, we'll have a squad size of 23 senior players. It currently is 22. Matip would make 23. Guilherme's not included, of course, because he doesn't have to be registered as a senior player because he's under 21. Now, if you look at that, 3 goalkeepers, 2 right backs, 2 left backs, 4 centre backs if Matip comes in. We've got 4 central midfielders, and we've got 6 attacking midfielders with Carlos Soler in the squad as well. And then at this moment in time, we've got 3 strikers, although we're using Antonio and Fulkrug far more than we're using Danny Ings. Will Danny Ings get an opportunity to play? I just don't know. But what we can do with the squad that we've got is Lopetegui can start mixing things around. He can start mixing players around. He can start using different formations. For example, he can use a 4-1-4-1. You take your pick who you have at the back, Mavropanos or Todibo. I think when Todibo becomes match fit, I think he'll be taking his place alongside Kilman. And you can have one pivot. You can have Alvarez in the middle, and then you can have a really attack-minded front four of Bowen, Soler, Paqueta, and Kudus, with maybe Fulkrug or Ings or Antonio up front. And then you can go different. This, for me, feels better in a lot of ways. And this is what I've suggested about putting Bowen up front, because you can have Kudus out on the right, and then you can bring someone like Somerville over on the left-hand side. And then you can go with a 4-3-3, make it more compact. Now, we know that Lopetegui likes his fullbacks to dart forward. So you can see the likes of Wan-Bissaka and the likes of Emerson darting forward. And then someone like Alvarez, or if Rodriguez is playing, could just slip to the back, to make a 3 at the back should we lose the ball. And then you've got the flair of Soler and Paquetá, and again, players closer to our striker, like Bowen and Kudus, etc. Now, if Kudus was playing a lot closer to the striker, I would argue keep him there, because you have Emerson as doing the overlap. Or you can go with a 3-5-2 or a 3-5-1-1, where again, this time round, look at that midfield. I mean, that might be killer, maybe against some of the weaker teams in the Premier League. Is there such a thing, having the likes of Soler, Kudus, and Paqueta in the middle, with poor old Alvarez dropping to the back? But Alvarez can drop to the back. Now that we've got, no, we haven't. Now that we're looking at Matip coming in, then you can maybe put 3 at the back with either Mavropanos, Todibo, Kilman at the back with Matip as backup, or you can put Alvarez there. And a really attack-minded central midfield, and then the wing backs and so on. So I guess what I'm saying is with the squad that we've got, whether Matip comes in or not, with the squad that we've got options now. We've got options to play different formations, different players, bringing players in, maybe sooner, starting players, starting Somerville, and maybe dropping, I don't know, the likes of Paqueta or whatever. Paqueta still worries me a little bit. I know he's still not match fit, but Paqueta just needs to be careful now that Soler is here, because if there's anyone that's going to be dropped from that centre of midfield, it's unlikely Alvarez will be either Alvarez or Rodriguez, or when we're playing a team like Liverpool, etc., it will be maybe Alvarez and Rodriguez. But when you've got your middle attacking players, maybe it's Paqueta that might drop for Soler. I wonder how he'd feel about that. But sometimes you've got to take a player out, in order for them to have that little boot up the arse to say, look, if you're not doing it, you're not going to get picked. So we've got the squad now. We've got that depth. We've got that quality. We've got players that can play in different formations, in different positions, etc. But the one thing I keep harking on about is I want to see Mohamed Kudus move away from the left-hand side. And I want to see perhaps either Paqueta or Somerville there. And I want to see Kudus either in the middle or out on the right. And if you put him out on the right, that means you put Jared Bowen in the middle of the park, or as a striker. Right, let's go into your comments, and then we'll go back to the other parts of the show. Daniela, Martial is more interim prone than Dan Spencer. Frank Spencer. Garino, Osimhen going to Galatasaray. Osimhen going to Galatasaray on loan. What's going on there? Galimara to you, James. I hope you're well, mate. Thank you for joining. Good evening to you, Jason. How are you? Glenn, should have gone in for the forward Ipswich sign from Blackburn, whose name escapes me, for 9 million. I don't know. You're going to have to find his name for me. Garino, people were moaning about Paqueta, but he set up the Kudus and Somerville chances in the second half. Our only creative output who will, by the nature of the role he plays, misplace some passes. What do you think of what I said about maybe Soler being that kind of creative player as well, who might be challenging Paqueta in the middle of the park? Toha, our midfield and defenders have Haaland as captain in their fancy football team. David M, good evening, mate. I've got to say, Wan-Bissaka, what a signing. Did Man United miss him yesterday? I sure think they did. Shaky. Paqueta is not at the races, is he? Only he knows what's in his top 2 inches. What's in his top 2 inches? Wan-Bissaka, Gary, is quickly becoming my favourite signing. Toha, that would make a great spot the ball photo. Which one? I didn't know which one you're talking about. DiCanio. Good evening, mate. Paqueta and Emerson play better together on the left. Another reason to move our best player, Kudus, in the middle. I agree with that. And Paqueta can play that role because you're not going to ask him to hug the touchline. You're not asking him to play as a winger. You're asking him to play as like an inverted left-sided midfielder. And he can do it. He has played that role before. James, good evening, mate. Somerville is looking as if he could be quite tasty. Kilman and Wan-Bissaka looking like the signings of the window. I don't see Fulkrug setting the world on fire, though. I know people are saying that, but do you think it's fair that we haven't really given him the fair crack at the whip yet? David M. When you have a front three of Somerville, Bowen and Kudus, can they swap places? And yes, they can. And in fairness to Lopetegui, what he has been doing in the first few games of the season, he has been getting Antonio, Kudus and Bowen to interswitch. So I spotted it again at the weekend where all of a sudden we had Kudus out on the right, Bowen in the middle, etc. But I've noticed that's what's happening when we're sort of like at certain stage of the game. It's not making that tactical change and keeping it. It's like a momentous thing. I think a momentum thing where I think, you know, when we've conceded a corner, etc., all of a sudden you're finding the front three in different positions, but then straight after they're going back to the natural positions that they've been allocated. But I want to see more of that. And maybe with the likes of Somerville, Bone and Kudus, you could see more of that. Stephen, good evening, mate. Antonio left wing to cross into Fulkrug and Kudus a false number 9. There's some good reason why Antonio's not playing as a winger, and that's got an awful lot to do with his hamstrings. And I do honestly think that we've got more life out of him, if that makes sense, because he has played up front rather than having to chase down balls down the wing. I think that's why he's not being used out wide. Gary, I think Soler will help with servicing Fulkrug. Garino, I'm more concerned about Kudus being shoved out on the left. Put Somerville there and Kudus and Paqueta in central mid with Bowen on the right. But then you're overloading the midfield because you'll have to do away with both Alvarez and Rodriguez. So it's almost like this one that I put up where we've got a great midfield, really attack-minded midfield, but no defensive midfielders. Good evening, Scott. Cheers to you, mate. I hope you're well. DiCanio. Fulkrug would join Allaire and Scamacca on the West Ham number 9 graveyard. We ruin strikers, then score goals when they leave. But we don't no longer have David Moyes. That was the criticism targeted at David Moyes. We don't have David Moyes anymore. Is Lopetegui going to do the same thing? Or will he eventually start providing the sort of setup that Fulkrug would? Let's be honest. Someone said it earlier in the show. I think it was Daniela. Let's not forget the teams. All right, forget about Bournemouth for a minute in the Cup. Let's not forget the teams that we played in the Premier League. All 3 teams that we played in the Premier League so far are pretty decent. Crystal Palace spanked us 5-2 last season. And Manchester City and Aston Villa finished in the top 4. So maybe what Lopetegui is doing is he's trying to do a little bit more defensive-minded in some games, but maybe he'll start let's be honest, Fulham are a good team. We're away to them as well, but they should be beatable. Maybe he'll start with Fulkrug and have a much closer, compact team around him in that game. Garino. Bowen can be effective as a striker. He has got good ball control. I agree. I have no issue at all if Jared Bowen became our striker for the season. No issue at all, because we've got cover out wide. You know, if we get injuries to either Kudus or Somerville, etc., we know we can put Bowen back out on the right and Kudus on the left, or whatever it may be, and put Antonio or Ings or Fulkrug in the middle. Excuse me. Daniela would love to see a front three of Somerville, Bowen, and Kudus against Spurs. Shaky, Somerville left, Kudus on the right, Bowen up front. Exactly that. Gary, Starboy looks miserable. He doesn't look happy. I've got to be honest, he doesn't. Darren, good evening, mate. I hope you're well. In my opinion, he will not cut it. He reminds me of Andy Carroll. We need an all-purpose striker that can do it all. End of. Bill, we put too much emphasis on Bowen and Kudus scoring rather than making assists. There's none of those neat cutbacks to where strikers find space. Good point. Usual. New series of The Curse of Oak Island starts tonight in certain. They'll find the gold this time around. I've got no clue what you're talking about, but let's move on. Daniel, good evening to you. I get those unsure about Fulkrug, me too, but if Lopetegui can set up for Souček, then he can damn well set up for Fulkrug as well. Good point. Obsidian, he can play in the left-hand side, but can he pass the Dutchie? Gary, Darren, with respect, I don't think he's had enough of a chance to make a judgment yet. Good evening to you, Fred. I hope you're well, mate. Darren, Anthony Martial is on a free. Yeah, I talked about him in the show I did this morning, but no one has gone in for him. And I think Garino said earlier on that I think when Martial played for Seville, Lopetegui wasn't that enamored with him and cut him out of the team. So James should have put up cash for Duran. He's mustard. I'm going to do a show later on this week about that. I'm going to play a bit of devil's advocate as well, but bear with me on that. Excuse me, Shaky. Sorry, usual. Shaky, it's been going for years. I still watch it. I do not have a clue what show you're talking about. The Canio. Free agent Phil Jones, seen on the orbital slide. Here we go. Anthony, the manager is becoming desperate after all. You don't go after free agents if you're not desperate. I don't think he's getting desperate. I think what he said was, I want enough cover in all the areas. I'm not sure whether we should sign Matip. I will come to him later in the show. Paul, good evening, mate. I hope you're well, or any other player for that matter. Bill, expect that the big three, Bowen, Kudus and Paqueta, one will be dropped back to the bench. I agree with that. And I think at this moment in time, it's likely to be Paqueta. Darren, Shaky, I agree. He's a good player and has scored some great goals. Good evening to you, Lee. I hope you're well. Good evening, Fred. Am I mad to fancy Kudus as centre forward? If you're going to play him out of position, why not then Somerville on the left? Well, he has played as a false number 9, so he can do that role. But I think if we want a target man, I would rather go with Bowen there and then put Kudus out on the right-hand side. David, your tactics possibilities sound great. The balance will be there. Round pegs in round holes. Let's scroll down. Kimbo, good evening, mate. I hope you're well. Bill, I don't believe you will see Emerson and Somerville in the same team. Insufficient defence on the left. Interesting shout, that's quite an interesting shout. Chris, but that means then, well, how many games will Somerville ever get? Unless, of course, you see Wan-Bissaka going out on the left and then Somerville in front of him, maybe. Chris, I'm not getting my feathers ruffled after losing to Man City. We gave them a run. We were not blown out. I totally and utterly agree with you. Bill again. And certainly not with Paqueta in there as well. Too reliant on his buddy Emerson to be his shadow. But they do play well on that left side together. Philip, so many options. Good season ahead. Let's scroll down. Good evening, Mark. How are you, mate? I hope you're well. Good evening to you, Ray. I hope you're well. Thank you for joining. Vic, I've got 3 VIP Oasis tickets, 150 grand, all 3. Any takers? Arthur, Fulkrug English football won't suit him. I don't know. Let's give that time. If we've gone 6, 7, 8 games and Fulkrug is not beginning to show what he's capable of, then I'll get concerned. Montana, good evening, mate. Is Casey going to get a chance at centre back? Not if we end up bringing in one of these free agents, unfortunately. Zynix, Zin XY, good evening to you. Do you think Fulkrug will be a fail or a success? Too early to say, if I have to be honest with you. I think we still need, what did I just say? Give him another half a dozen games and see, so long as we play to his strengths. It's the important thing with a striker. You don't play to a striker's strengths. Doesn't matter how good they are. They're not going to get the service they need. They're not going to score. Montana, I concur with Shaky. Why should we shoehorn Kudus on the left? It worries me. It worries me. James, maybe instead of Bowen up front, we should try Kudus there. He's fast and full of goals. I think he's better off on the right, to be honest with you. Hammer, 84. Skinwalker Ranch is better than Oak Island. Again, no clue. Zin, I'm so gutted Duran wasn't completed. His header he scored was just mint. Thank you, Hammer84. If you're new to the channel, please do like the content if you like it, and please do become a subscriber of the channel. Costs you nothing to do so. All the content is free. Thank you, 84, for reminding everybody. Mark, if we played 40 million on Duran, surely would have run out of funds on other players they sign, more freebies or loans than fans would have mowed about. That's just my opinion. I'm doing a show about that, and I will talk about that in a bit more depth. Stan, Kudus seems to be trying too hard on his own in games. In a way, that's another thing that worries me. Almost as if both Bowen and Kudus seem to be sort of like running themselves ragged, and they're not getting. I wonder if that's where Soler comes in the centre of the park. Howard, 250 in here, less than 100 likes. Are you the people's front of Judea? Thank you very much. Good evening to you, Stan. I hope you're well. Good evening to you, Tony. I hope you're well. I've got a shout out to make. Just reminded me. I didn't get your second name, but I got your first name as I was in the train station at Stratford. No, it weren't. It was Bob, who I met in the smoking area, not the train station, because I didn't get that guy's name. Bob, who I met in the smoking area, came over and said hello. Thank you for that, Bob. And I did say I'd give you a shout out. So shout out to Bob. I hope you're well. Bill, Creswell will fill in when fit for Somerville to run the line. Don't know about that. Aidan, morning to you, mate. I hope you're well. DJ, good evening, mate. Evening to you as well. Carl Clark, give someone else the captain's armband, then you will see the best of Bone. Do you think it's already playing habit? Do you think it's a bit too much on his shoulders? I don't know. Zin, I think Depay would be a fantastic sign. And apparently, he's going to Brazil, is what I heard earlier today. Mark, good evening, Stellan Chat. Can you see any of our youngsters getting a chance this season? No, because we've sent all our best youngsters out on loan. The only ones at the moment that haven't gone out on loan, well, not likely to now that the window's shut, are Alford, Casey, and the left back who was mentioned just a moment ago, Ollie Scarles. Casey, Ollie Scarles, and Alford are currently playing in the under-21s. Maybe, just maybe, they might be called into the senior squad every now and again. Do I think they'll get any game time? I don't, to be honest with you. Our best youngsters are out on loan. Early doors. Good evening, mate. I hope you're well. Thank you for joining. Danny, up early in the morning, breath stinking as I'm yawning. Go and brush your teeth, mate. Matthew, I'm more concerned about Boeing than anyone else. He looks like he's lost out on the right and not very involved. Well, the right side of it is where he made his trade, but maybe even more reason why we should move him to the centre of the park and play him as a striker. Stan, Creswell should be nowhere near the league, maybe in the cups. Mark, I think Kudus and Bowen are running around like headless chickens because they're used to it from last season and probably worried about leaving the hard work to the midfield and defensive players. That's a good shout. Paul, Scarles deserves a chance. Zin, from the first 3 games, where do you think we will finish? And be honest, I think we'll finish in the top 10. Do I think we'll finish? If we carry on playing in the manner that we've been playing, I don't think there's any reason why we shouldn't finish in a European position. And that's the honest truth. David, because we're only going to get better. We have to get better. David, good afternoon on Labour Day in North America. Good afternoon. Happy Labour Day to you, mate. I hope you're well. Darren, how about Kudus centre forward and Bone outright? I just think it works better the other way around. I really do. I think Kudus can do it, but Kudus is more like it could work, but I would prefer to see Bowen in the middle, and because we've seen what he can do. We've seen the quality that Bowen has got as a striker, and put Kudus out on the right hand side. Lot of iron. Good evening to you. Edson Alvarez should have been made captain. That's not a bad shout, but we have what we have. Tony, morning all. Feeling funny that we seem fairly happy after a loss. Bill, well, that's because I think we all agree that we all played really well. Bill, wasn't Cresswell and Somerville picked before Cresswell got the injury? I don't know. Yes, you're absolutely right for the cup game. You're spot on. Fred, Paul Evans, agree. Scar's worth a punt in the cup games at least. Stephen, Fulkrug will silence his critics. In Tim and Loppy, we must trust. Feels like some are still holding on to old tactics. We've been all fornoused by Moyes. Stan, the captain's armband is putting Bowen under too much pressure. Do you think that already? I don't know. Sometimes it can take its toll on a player. Vic, Cresswell should be either side of the cup games and the league games. I want strong sides in the cup. Paul, Bowen is quality whenever or wherever he plays. Galispera Keith, I hope you're well. Thank you for joining, mate. Toha, Luzau is a mystery, overrated for the under-21s, but does not look close to the first team squad, but is still here. It is odd, and apparently we had all this interest in the player, but he hasn't gone anywhere. Would it be worth calling him into the senior squad to see how well he can do? But it's interesting that it was Caelan Casey who got the nod at the weekend in the senior on the subs bench. Shaky, Ben Yedder is available, can still knock him home. 34. Imagine the outcry if we bought in Ben Yedder. I don't know. I don't like this idea of getting older players in, especially when we've just managed to get rid of a lot of injury prone and a lot of older players. Zin, is it just me who's getting annoyed about these international breaks just so we can watch England beats awful countries? I'm with you, mate. Bombjack, sorry. Apart from Krug, we're pretty much the same up front as last season. Moyes tried all number of configurations and the team was better with Bowen up front and Kudus on the right. I make you right, mate. I totally agree with you. Roger Miller has hung up his boots. What a shame. He's only about 58, isn't he? Bill, Bowen is still new to the captain's role. Once he's got that mastered, he'll be fine. Got to grow into that position. Good point. David, Bowen is fine even as a captain. Let's keep tinkering on the right formation up front. Results will come. Tony, I think we will shock everyone and finish 5th. Signs are there of something special happening. I do agree. I think the signs are there. Right. One more, and then I'll go into the next bit of the show. Early doors. Have to give the new boys time to settle and for Lopetegui to gel this squad. Got to have patience. It will come together. Right. Of course, someone's just mentioned it. We now have the dreaded international break where we now bite our fingers for the next 2 weeks and hope that we get no injuries to any of our players. Amongst the players that have been called up for international duty, they include Jared Bowen, Dinos Mavropanos, Lucas Paqueta. I mentioned earlier in the show, Alphonse Areola has gone out, even though he got a back injury during the game against Man City. He's out with the French squad. I'm expecting him to come back. I'm sure there are plenty of other players that I've not mentioned. Edson Alvarez, thankfully, has not been called up by the Mexican squad. So he is still at West Ham recuperating, which is really good to hear. Now, there's a whole pile of academy players that have gone out on international duty as well. As many as eight players. Let's get rid of that because that's too early. Captain Caelan Casey, the under-21s captain, will be travelling with the Elite League squad, formerly known as the under-20s. Why change the name? It will be the 19-year-olds, the second call up to the Elite League squad, having represented England at that level in June earlier this year. The England under-19 squad includes Lewis Orford, Josh Ajala, and Finlay Herrick, our goalkeeper, been chosen to represent England. Aridas, God, I'm not going to get this right. Bear with me. Aridas Golambekis. That's not bad. It sounds Greek. Aridas Golambekis. Who's he? He had a great start domestically with the West Ham under-18s team, scoring 2 goals in his last 2 appearances, has been called up to the England under-18 squad. The 16-year-old centre-back represented Lithuania at under-16 level. But he will be linking up with England teammates for the first time as they travel to Limoges in France for the Lafarge Foot Avenir tournament, whatever that is. First-year scholars Andre Dyke, Shinatsa Nwosu, and Lanre Awesu will be heading to Germany for the England under-17s international camp, where they will go up against Mexico, Israel, and Germany. And we wish them all the very best of luck. Hopefully, none of them come back injured. Right. What about the academy games that have been held? The under-21s claimed a narrow 1-0 victory over Norwich at Rush Green Stadium, thanks to a second-half effort from that young lad again, Josh Ajala, maintaining their perfect start to the season with 3 wins from 3 games as we've gone into the international break. Despite Norwich growing into the game, the first half finished 0-0. West Ham gave a more assured second half performance, and we got our goal on the 63rd minute when Lewis Orford won the ball deep in Norwich's half. He crossed to find Swire, who blocked effort was retrieved by Ajala, and despite calls for offside, the flag stayed down and Ajala slotted home. Great start to the for the under-21s. Well done to them. And let's see how they get on, because it's a very young under-21s team. The under-18s are off the mark for the new season after picking up their first points in the under-18 Premier League South. They got a draw against Brighton and Hove Albion the other day, and just a few days later registered their first win of the campaign with a 2-0 victory at home against Nottingham Forest. That was the Premier League Cup. So we got a point in our league game against Brighton, and then the Premier League Cup a couple of days later, we beat Nottingham Forest. This was after our narrow defeat in the opening day against Arsenal, where we were unlucky not to come away with a draw. So well done to the under-18s as well for picking up their first points. Now, what about some loan news? I mentioned a moment ago that most of our better academy players are out on loan. And before departing for, let's put that slide up. Before departing for Northern Ireland International, Callum Marshall made his second League One start for Huddersfield Town in a Yorkshire derby against Rotherham United. He came close to scoring on a number of occasions, but with 20 minutes remaining, Marshall was replaced. Here's the irony. Marshall was replaced by Danny Ward, who was shown a red card almost immediately after an aerial challenge. Huddersfield took the lead, but were unable to hold Rotherham, who beat them 2-1. Gideon Kodawa, who's back on loan at Wycombe Wanderers in the EFL Cup win away to Swansea, was introduced in the final minutes after... start again. Gideon Kodawa was a late sub in the game, the 2-2 draw against Blackpool at the weekend. In League Two, Patrick Kelly came off the bench in the second half to help Doncaster Rovers record their first away win of the season with a 3-2 win over Port Vale. Other young players that didn't get called up to play, apart from Mason Terry, Hornchurch's Mason Terry entered the weekend with a joint best second defensive record in National League South, and uncharacteristically, after having that record, conceded 3 goals in the first 37 minutes against Weston-super-Mare. Despite a spirited second-half performance, they lost 3-2. Players who are out on loan but didn't get any game time are Christian Heggie at Motherwell, Levi Lang, Michael Forbes, all unused subs in for the respective teams. Right. I'm going to go into transfers now, but before I do that, let's go into your comments again. Early doors have got to give the new boys time to settle, and for Lopetegui to gel this squad, have got to have patience. It will all come together. Zin, Somerville has got to start. Montana, if Bowen is our answer for striker, why did we buy Fulkrug? I don't have an answer to that. Backup, I guess. Who else have we got? David. Do any of you have any doubts about Bowen being captain? To be honest, I'd rather he gave it to Kilman. I don't. I think someone said you've got to grow into it, and I'm not too worried at this moment in time. Montana, I've agreed Dyche is atrocious. I can honestly see Moyes getting the Everton job. That'd be interesting to see how that goes. Danny boy. On the way back, I cuddled with Stan. The way we played in parts against City would have got us points in most other games. I totally agree with that. Tony, I would rather the Guns N' Roses song Patience. Let's scroll down. You're all singing songs now. Gaz, good evening to you. Not got time to watch out with the missus. I'll watch the replay later. Keep up the good. Thank you very much, Gaz, and have a good evening with your missus. Cece. We mustn't overthink things because it tends to lead down to a negative road. We will have 12 points by the next international break. Fingers crossed. Trodge, good evening, mate. Have we signed any has-beens? Not yet. Fred, if Mexico gave Alvarez a pass instead of dragging him half the way across the world to play, fair dues to them. Absolutely. Let's scroll down. Who else have we got? Gary, I'm fine with Bowen being the skipper. He deserves it. Anthony, Summers is far too slow, worse than Zouma. Summers, which Summers? Who are you talking about, mate? And not Somerville, I hope not. Sin, I was on the edge of my seat for City. I'm telling you, Hammers, they thrive off the atmosphere. And it was a very good atmosphere at the weekend as well. I'll make you right on that. Right, let's go into transfer. So it was suggested that we would have 3 players out and 2 players in. Instead, we had 4 players out and 1 player in. And of course, I mentioned it earlier in the show, Carlos Soler was introduced to the West Ham fans before the game against Manchester City. Look, I'm looking forward to seeing Carlos Soler play. But we're going to have to wait because he hasn't had too much of a preseason himself. So, and he'd hardly been used for the PSG team before he came to us. Soler is a very good footballer. He started his career off at youth level as a striker. He went back to attacking midfielder, and now he's a more like I'm surprised he got the number 4 shirt because he's more like a number 8. He's a bit more of a box-to-box midfielder. And I said earlier on, if there's a player that's got to be worried about his place in the starting lineup, for me, we've seen what's happened. Everyone moaning about Thomas Souček was getting game time, being in the starting lineup. It was only a matter of time that Souček will be dropped to the bench, given that Alvarez was getting back to match fitness. Now, I think the player, that's got to look out for his place in the starting lineup is Lucas Paqueta. Now, I showed you some different graphics earlier on, a style of play that we can have. We can have 3 attacking midfielders in there. We can have Soler and Paqueta either side of someone like Alvarez. We can have Alvarez sitting deeper, Soler and Paqueta together in the middle, further up, etc. There are options. There are options that Lopetegui can use now with Carlos Soler coming in. But that's what's good about having someone like Soler at the club. We now do have those options. And I think we're going to see very different football, a very different style of play for West Ham United with Soler here. I believe he's going to give us just that little bit of difference, that little bit of impetus in the middle of the park. And I think that's exciting. I think it's going to give us the opportunity. It's going to give Lopetegui the opportunity to start using different players for different games. Do not be surprised if you see the likes of Paqueta being dropped to the bench. Now, I don't like to use the word drop. I would rather say rotated rather than dropped. And I think we're going to see more of that as the season goes on, especially in midfield and especially up front. Someone just asked the question, what was the point of signing Fulkrug? To give us options. I've got to be honest with you people. It's really hot in this room. But anyway, I'll carry on. I can now see with the squad that we've got, Lopetegui looking at different teams. It's a bit like American football. In American football, you've got this big squad, haven't you? You've got the defensive team and you've got the attacking team, haven't you? So when you're sort of using the ball in America, when you got the ball in American football, you've got your offensive line. That's not a very good American accent, is it? And then when you haven't got the ball, when you're trying to retrieve the ball, you've got your defensive line, etc. And I think what Lopetegui is going to do with the squad that he's now got is he's going to start rotating, especially when everybody's match fit. Somerville, Alvarez, Fulkrug, etc., Soler, etc. So I know what's going to happen when it happens the first time. If, let's say, Bowen goes to the bench, or let's say Paqueta is on the bench, or let's say Alvarez on the bench, or whoever, there's going to be the West Ham channels will putting out shows going dropped. Paquetá has been dropped, but no, being rotated is what is going to happen, and we're going to have to get used to that. We want a squad that's competitive. We've been moaning for the last 2 or 3 years that we've had a too small a squad in order to be able to make changes, effective changes. We've got a squad now with a manager, with a coach that can make effective changes during game time. But that means that coach is going to have to make decisions on who his first 11 is going to be. If Paqueta's on the bench, maybe Kudus might be on the bench to play Somerville. Maybe you don't start with a striker and you got Bowen up front, or Kudus, as many have been asking for, up front, and you got all your strikers on the bench. But the beauty of it means that at some stage in the game, if we're having to chase the game or change it or whatever we have to do, you're going to start seeing those players who were benched to start coming on. Lopetegui has gone out of his way to say on more than one occasion, this is a squad effort. It's not about, and even at the weekend, even when we won the game against Bournemouth, etc., he still praised the players on the squad. He even praised the players. He said it's a squad effort. You know, it's not about just those first 11 players that go out on the bench. It's about the whole squad. We as West Ham fans are going to be aghast when we see Paqueta or maybe Kudus or Alvarez or some other player that we sort of herald at, at this level. We're all going to be aghast, aren't we, when we see them sitting on the bench? Do not forget, it means that Lopetegui has determined that in order to win a game, the 11 that are going to be out on the field are the ones that he believes will get a result. And what it means is, doesn't mean that the players that are sitting on the bench are rubbish. Absolutely not. Look at the quality that we now have. Let me go back to our squad. Look at the quality that we now have. Matip, I don't know. Maybe, that deal, by the time this show's over, that deal may be done and dusted. But look at the quality we've got. And we even were suggesting like the likes of Soufal are going to be gone. And I know a lot of fans still don't have time for Soucek or Danny Ings for that matter. But he's kept them. They're all here. This is the squad. Unless we sort of get another 1 or 2 freebies in, this is the squad that we've got. Soufal, when he came on, had a point to prove, and Wan-Bissaka went over to the left. No one player is safe anymore in that being in that starting lineup. I still think Todibo, when he is up to match fitness, will be absolutely challenging Dinos Mavropanos for a place alongside Kilman. Possibly there'll be games you might see all 3 of the centre backs playing. 3 at the back and wing backs of Wan-Bissaka and Emerson and so on. And then in the middle of the park, you've got options now. You've got Rodriguez who's settling in. You even have, many people were suggesting Andy Irving was not going to be part of the team anymore. And he was also going to be sold. And there were offers for him from Celtic, etc. But he's still there. So you've got options, and look at the frontline options. Even though Guilherme has yet to kick a ball, he's still an option as well. So we've got players now where Lopetegui can go, I'm going to play Soler, Somerville, Bowen, and Fulkrug up front. I'm going to play Paqueta alongside Rodriguez, and I'm going to drop Alvarez. He's got options, which is wonderful. So let's not be at all surprised if throughout the season you start seeing players being rotated, not dropped. So anyway, we had Soler brought in, looking forward to that. And of course, we're still scratching our heads and wondering how Kurt Zouma managed to pass his medical. And he said his goodbyes after sealing a 2-year loan deal at Al Aroba, the Saudi Arabian club. And apparently they're picking up 75% of his wages, which means we're contributing 25%, which is give or take around about £25,000 a week towards his wages. But it's only for a first season because we're not responsible for subsidizing his wages in the second half of his loan spell. I don't understand why it's a loan spell. He's in his last year of his contract. He's gone. He's not being loaned out. He's gone. to Al Aroba, and we wish him all the very best. Bit weird seeing James Ward-Prowse in Nottingham Forest shirt. I think I suggested at the weekend that maybe it wasn't West Ham United who were looking to move James Ward-Prowse on. Maybe, just maybe, James Ward-Prowse was looking at the fact that Soler was coming in, the fact that we've got all these midfielders, etc. And he was probably saying to himself, I'm not likely to get a start here, or I'm not likely to get a lot of game time. I want to go somewhere where I will get game time. And I think he will get game time at Nottingham Forest. So I just wonder if we'll find out at some time in the future that it was perhaps James Ward-Prowse pushing for a move as much as West Ham looking to move him on. I did say last week I thought it would be a reluctant transfer, and I still have that feeling about me that it will be. Of course, what's he going to do? First game he plays for them, he's going to probably break the duck, get the record now, the Premier League record of the most goals scored from a free kick. But we wish him well. Now, this is a loan spell, and it's still not clear to me, to be really honest with you, what the deal is in terms of, is there an obligation to buy? Is there an option to buy? My understanding is there are neither. It's just a straightforward loan spell. We've got £5 million for the loan. And then I'm guessing he's back at the end of this season, which is odd. And then we got Maxwell Cornet. He's gone on loan to Southampton. Again, another player I guess we didn't think we'd manage to move on. He's gone on loan to Southampton for a 2.8 million loan fee with Ward-Prowse. Nottingham Forest are picking up 100% of his wages, as with Maxwell Cornet. 2.8 million loan fee, 100% of his wages as well. Again, with no option or no obligation to buy. I wonder if we'll find out a little bit more about that over the coming weeks or months. But he's out on loan to Southampton. And then the last minute deal, of course, was Nayef Aguerd. After turning down, I find this really odd. He's turned down some good, not saying that Real Sociedad isn't a good team, but he's turned down some decent teams and he's ended up, this sounded to me like a last minute, oh, sod it, I might as well go there rather than nowhere deal. There was a deal on the table, a £4 million loan to go to Al Ittihad in Saudi Arabia with an obligation to buy for 17 million. He turned that down, and fair play. Not everybody wants to go and just grab the money like Ivan Toney. Some people want to play in a decent league. But he too has gone out on loan. Now, it's interesting because he sent out a message to the West Ham fans, wishing them well and thank you very much. And, talked about how West Ham will always be a significant part of his life and so on and so forth, with great memories and so on. Sounded like he was gone for good. He's only gone out on loan. And my understanding, again, unless we're not told as to other things that might be going on, he's also back at West Ham at the end of this season. Perhaps things will change as time goes on. But these loans have been odd because they've all been straight loan deals and nothing more than that. Now, the player that apparently we're in for, now, I know there's two. There's John Egan from Sheffield United, and there's also Joel Matip from Liverpool. Now, my understanding is that the preference at this moment in time is Joel Matip over John Egan. If I was to have to pick between the two, I guess it would be Matip. And I'm thinking that the deal is probably, well, first of all, before any deal's done, he's going to have a thorough medical because right up until the end of last season, he was out injured with a cruciate ligament. Now, if he does pass a thorough medical, I think it will be maybe some kind of deal where it might be a pay-as-you-play deal, or maybe just a short-term deal, maybe until January when the January window opens. I do think we're going to do more business in January when it comes up. And I think the two areas we're very likely to do business in are going to be in defence and up front. If you go back to the squad, like I said, if Matip comes in, that'll make 23 players, which means that we've still got two players that we can bring in. And I just have a feeling that we're going to be doing more business in January in order to complement the squad. So Matip could be a short-term deal. It could be a pay-as-you-play deal as well. Look, he's had a great career. Youth development in Germany. He signed for Liverpool in 2016. He won the Champions League, misspelling my error. He's a Champions League winner, Premier League winner, Cameroon international. He's got great aerial ability, very composed on the ball. He's a versatile player. He can play as a defensive midfielder as well as a centre back. He's got great experience and very calm, but he's very injury prone. He's had hamstring injuries, ankle and knee injuries, cruciate ligament tear, which was the most recent one. In his 8 years at Liverpool, he missed 140 games whilst there. And other areas that, not great at. He's not the most aggressive of defenders. I guess he relies on his finesse. Not the most physical, and he lacks pace. And I've got to ask myself, if we're going in for either John Egan or Joel Matip, why didn't we just keep this man? Why didn't we just keep Ogbonna and give him another year? Because, all right, if you're talking about a player that's had injuries, is slow, etc., well, you could be talking about Matip, and Ogbonna. But then Ogbonna knows the West Ham way, the West Ham, the way we play, etc. And if all you needed was a backup, then Ogbonna would have been perfect as a backup, and probably cost you a little bit less. Ogbonna was on something like 70 grand, 80 grand a week. Matip, I think, will come in, depending on what deal we agree, on a bit more. You could have given Ogbonna. Ogbonna would have bitten West Ham's hand off if you'd said to him, we'll give you a short-term contract until January, until the window opens, or we'll give you a pay-as-you-play contract. I think Ogbonna would have gone, I don't care, mate. I'll play for nothing. I'll stay at West Ham for nothing. I find it really confusing. Maybe, just maybe, we didn't think we were going to find ourselves in this position. Maybe, just maybe, we thought that we were going to have some other player that's going to come in at centre-back. And I've got a feeling this is all down to Nayef Aguerd. I think because it took us an awful lot longer to move him on than we wanted to, I think he's scuppered our ability to be able to bring in another player. And this is why we found ourselves in the position that we're in now. We found ourselves having to do last-minute deals. I don't think for a minute Tim Steidten or Julen Lopetegui or the club wanted to do the last-minute deals that we did. I think we were hoping that we would have moved a lot of these players on far sooner in order to have a good finish of the transfer window rather than scrambling. People have been asking, why are we bothering, scraping the bottom of the barrel, etc., etc. I think we found ourselves in this position. It's not by design. I think it's by default. But then, if that's the case, why not keep Ogbonna? I guess maybe we really did think that with Ogbonna going, Zouma going, and Aguerd going, that we'd got rid of all of them a lot sooner in order to bring in the players that we wanted. Right, let's go into your comments and see what you have to say. Tony, number 41 said it took him a long time to get used to the captain's armband on and off the pitch. Troj, my theory is we're weak in the air. I don't know. Are we? We've got Souček. We've got Alvarez. We've got Kilman. I don't know. And we'll suffer in the cup with long balls. James, looking forward to watching Soler, expecting big things. Troj, Hummels is dominant in the air. Now, my understanding is, at this moment in time, is we're looking at the opportunity of Matip. We're looking at the possible opportunity of Egan. And when I asked about Hummels, the response that we got from the senior source, or one of the senior sources, was, hang on, he's 35 or 36 years of age. No way. Daniela, Stel, it may be fun to do an under-21 watch one Friday if you're up for it. Good shout. Didn't think of that. Danny boy. It took a few cats with me. Shit, I'm going to need the company. George, good evening, mate. I hope you're well. I think Andy Irving will change people's minds about Scottish players. I live in Aberdeen, and most, if not all, kids just fade away. What a wasted talent. Let's see if he gets any game time. I'm glad that he's staying. Montana, Paqueta should check his shoulder. He is so pedestrian for my liking. Stan, very optimistic this season, not dredging 5-0 drubbings. Bomjack, Soler will be able to give Fulkrug feet rather than balls over Suchek's head, hopefully. Very good shout. Very good shout. Bill, rotation, absolutely. Stephen, different attributes, different setup and style. Aaron sounded like Forrest Gump after he smashed the pill. Who did? James, put the fan on still. I didn't have it in the room. I didn't bring it in the room. I forgot to bring it. Trodge, going to be much easier on the eye to watch us with more Spanish and South Americans in midfield. Zin, West Ham have been good so far. It doesn't look golden right now, but we played Villa and City, who both are very good and both top 4 teams. Howard, Grealish isn't dropped, but Grealish, Foden isn't dropped, but Grealish is. Usual. Foden's unwell, according to Pep. Apparently, is not. Montana. Mavropanos is so timid too. Always looks surprised when we're on the back foot. And, he was the one that I think pulled out of a 50-50 challenge, which led to their 3rd goal. Ryan, good evening, mate. I hope you're well. The best managers rotate. Even De Bruyne starts on the bench from time to time. That American accent was pretty bad. How old is Egan? I think he's 31. And is he any good? Injury prone. Again. Charles, love the fact that Loppe has used, and he hardly got played for Sheffield United when they got relegated. Charles, love the fact that Lopetegui has used all subs in a timely manner. Yeah, Egan is 31. Do we need freebies? Good evening, V9. I don't think we do, in all honesty. I personally wouldn't. I wouldn't bring in any freebies, but then who am I to say? Trodge, Kudus and Paqueta are too casual. I wouldn't say that of Kudus. I'd say that of Paqueta, but I wouldn't say that of Kudus. Anthony, all we do is cut out these stupid mistakes and wayward passes. That's really all we've got to do. Excuse me, Bill. At Palace, before shaking hands with their manager, he turned and patted everyone on the bench. Only one not impressed was Kudus. Yeah, I heard about that. I didn't see it, but I heard about that. Trodge, both need hairdryer for being snowboaty and casual. Fred, Kudus, casual. Don't know. I don't think I've seen that. Fred, we all moaned we needed to rotate, so let's see what happens. Mark, I don't rate Egan one bit. He was part of defence of Sheffield United last season that conceded all those goals. To be honest, he hardly played. CC, he got dropped and then he got injured. CC, he's going to Liverpool for the Corrupt Cup. I'm only because I live in the Northwest. I'm pretty sure I'm going to go. Yeah, I am going to go. And I know I'm going to have to persuade people to go with me, but I think I will go. Daniela, yes, players will be benched, but we will see 5 subs used in most games or start to hold a team, then go for it in the last 40 minutes. Agreed. Montana, Trodge, how can you say Kudus is casual? I'm surprised, Trodge, to be honest. I watched him last game. He did pointless showboat. I don't know, mate. Usually I agree with your comments. This time I don't think I can. V9, why did Fab start the last game? He didn't start the last game. Areola got injured at half time. I think it was the save he made and he ended up in the goal, and I think he hurt his back. So Fabianski came on at half time. Tony, no to Matip. We don't have Europe and won't win the league this season. So give the 4th centre-back spot to Casey. I agree. Howard, had Aguerd and Ings gone earlier or not at all, we would have been able to strengthen earlier. This is it. If they'd gone earlier, we would have been able to strengthen earlier. Toha, I like Egan and the rich kids and Visage. God, you're going back some there, Toha. Good. Cheers, John. Thank you very much, mate. Stephen, are we really talking about West Ham full squad strength and depth? Be careful what we wish for. Why not? I really do genuinely think that we've got some very good players on the bench. I even think Guilherme will eventually come into play. Do I think Irving will? No. But let's compare to the last couple of seasons under David Moyes, where he used the first 11 and then at most he'd use up to 3 subs. He hardly ever used more than that on rare occasions, unless we got injuries, etc. He would use 3 subs at best and then use 3 subs really late on. What we're seeing with Lopetegui is on 60, 65, 70 minutes, he's making changes. Not one, but he's making a couple. And not only is he making a couple, he's also changing the style of our play. So if one way is not working, he's bringing subs on to affect a change in our style. I like it. I do think we've got strength in depth, to be honest with you. How does Zouma feel about camels? We know his attitude. Boom, boom. Troj. Kudus and Paqueta both could do with world-class kick up the arse. I'm lost, Troj. Honestly, mate, I'm really lost. I think you're right about Paqueta. I don't deny that. But I'm lost on the Kudus bit, mate. Tony, our defenders were rotated every time Haaland ran past them. Montana, JWP did his best for the club, just doesn't suit our style at the moment. Stephen, what's the odds he gets the record against? Well, he can't play against us. He's on loan, so he can't play against us. James, I've got those red and white checkered tea towels too. Might follow Zouma's club. Epic. Stel, how did you manage to take a picture with Cornet? Cheeky git. How do I look like him? Look nothing like him. How dare you? I don't know who that is. Is that Russell Martin? That's not Russell Martin, is it? Troj. Should we be in the loan deal, not allowed to take free kicks versus hammers? Should be in the loan deal. No. Well, he can't play against us, as far as I'm aware. Is Akin Fenwa still playing his trade? Let's scroll down. Is Malcolm Allison still playing? Nathan won't be back. That's a Moyes joke, isn't it? Stan, I think we will play more exciting now. It was crap last season. Let's scroll down. SLM, good evening to you. Thank you for joining, mate. Troj, don't worry. We got the doctor who did the Zouma medical taking a look at Matip. John, I'd like to see Casey get some game time with different partners. Partridge in a pear tree. Mark, say Paqueta is found not guilty and is sold for 50 million in January. Would you use the money to buy John Duran, as plying his trade well for Villa, even from the bench? Yes, I would, but I don't think Villa will want to sell him, because if he ends up scoring half a dozen goals, whether from the bench or not, he won't go anywhere. Or they may ask for another 20 million. Richard, I get the impression Martial would unsettle in the dressing room. I don't know what he's like in that respect, but as I think Garino said earlier in the show, he was at Seville whilst Lopetegui was there, and he didn't do that well, and Lopetegui blew him out. Let's scroll down. Montana. Just make Casey the fourth centre-back. Tim is starting to make very doubtful decisions. This one would be doubtful. Barry, good evening to you. Aguerd was definitely a clock blocker. I agree. Brian, Duran will no longer be 40 million. If he keeps going like he is, he'll be closer to 60. CC, JW on loan, can't play against us. Exactly. Ramos, Marley, 38 years of age, mate. 38 years of age. He's probably one of the best defenders in the world at the time in his prime. He's 38. Montana, Saudi big bucks have dried up already. Andrew, maybe Casey will get an opportunity and just take it like Rice did. Jack Bell, what's Oggy doing now? Could be worth a quick call. He plays for Watford. He's been signed up by Watford. Gary, what about Luzau? He's a left-sided centre-back. He is. Don't know. Something clearly is not right, because he's not getting a look in the senior squad. He's 22, so he can't really be playing for this. Well, he can play. You can play one over 21, but he's 22 years of age now. And don't know what's going to happen to him. Apparently, there was all this interest in the transfer window. He ended up going nowhere. Carl, didn't Obama go to Watford on a year loan? Obama? No, mate, he's gone. He was on a free and he's gone for good. What's my prediction this term, Stan? I'm going to stick my neck out. I say we're going to be in Europe next. Let me change it slightly. Earlier, I said we'll finish in a European position in the league. I'm going to change it slightly and say we're going to we're going to play European football next season. Of course, that means we could win a cup. But then when you've got the corrupt cup and you end up playing against Liverpool, one doubts whether you can even do that anymore. Alex, we can't take out Paqueta, in my opinion. He runs the games for us, but would like to see others do the playmaking for us. This is why we've got Soler in, and this is why I think that we will see Paqueta on the bench every now and again. Tony, our new scout Fornals is fantastic. Bring him back. Yeah, he's the one that recommended West Ham to Soler. Who else have we got? Spitting lyrics. I'm spitting something, but not lyrics. One man and only platform. Yeah, Visage, Howard. Bill, subs will come along like buses in twos. I doubt Lopetegui will simply replace one player in a like-for-like formation. And we've seen that already. Brian, Somerville will not only come good, he will come great. I believe after a good amount of game time, he will be top-notch, possibly the signing of the season. I like Somerville. I've seen some good glimpses of him. I think I agree with you. I think he'll get better. James, national holiday in USA, Labor Day. Happy Labor Day, mate. Our midfield needs creativity, and hopefully we have it now. Drop Paqueta if he doesn't perk up. Hi to everyone watching, and the babes are out in force in Santa Monica. Lucky bastard. Good evening to you, James, or good afternoon to you, James. I hope you're having a great Labor Day. Anthony, Mabama is an idiot to think he will ever keep Haaland out of the team. Just going to keep on the bench. He won't. I will be very surprised if he got any game time whatsoever. Montana, Ten Hag is making Man United shite. What, more than they were? Andrew, we messed up not paying the money for Duran. Fulcrook looking like another expensive misfit. Let's hold on. That was talked about earlier in the show. I think we're still a long way to go before we say that Fulcrook is going to be a failure. Danny boy, it's your day shining or you're singing. Good evening, West Ham Massive. I hope you're well. I repaired Kifenyo's dishwasher a few years ago. Tony, still, I'd come to Liverpool with you, but you'll have to pay for my airfare from Sydney. Yeah, I'll do a report and let you know how it went. Akifenya plays for Fleetwood Town. I didn't know that, CC. Glenn, to get the best out of Fulcrook, he needs a striker partner to feed off maybe Ings. Who would you drop to put Danny Ings in the side? I mean, I'm being serious. Who would you drop for that? Let's scroll down. Aaron, I wouldn't want Ramos, but part of me would love Ramos at West Ham. I get what you're saying, mate. Let's scroll down. Fred, we'll never know about Casey unless he's thrown in at the deep end. Yeah, true. E. Davis, just use your youth players or Alvarez as a Wan-Bissaka, Creswell, etc. Yeah, Alvarez can play there, and I believe so can Rodriguez. I think certainly Alvarez can. Stephen, we need to get a pacey striker in January. Probably the Duran potential deal has passed. I agree. Alex, what do we think about a backup for Emerson as Cressy is getting on? We'll have to wait until January now, but maybe that's why Wan-Bissaka, well, not maybe, that's why Wan-Bissaka has gone out on the left for 2 games now. Tony, most of these free transfers want massive wages. Danny boy, I've been going out with a... You're just singing to yourself, aren't you now? Andrew, we'll judge after 17 games, but at present, if I'm being honest, I'm not seeing too much difference in style from previous manager. Hopefully this will evolve quickly. I disagree, to be honest with you, Andrew. I am seeing different. I'm seeing very different. Taking the game to Man City, I think, is a very different approach. Jonathan, good evening, mate. Ramos as a West Ham legend written all over it. Dawson on steroids. Anthony, if we play 4-4-2, the German will score with a new front partner. Usual. Listen, John, he's still singing. I'm down to the end, an hour and a half. DJ Bombjack. Would be great for Casey to play alongside Ramos for a season. What, in the under-21s? I'm out of comments, and it's an hour and a half. So this is quite interesting. I've done an hour and a half. I started at 8:30. It's coming up to 10 o'clock. I want to ask you a question. Do you prefer... Now, I did ask the question on my YouTube channel in the comments section, and ironically, I asked what time would you like the West Ham Weekly to be on? 8 o'clock, 8:30, or the usual time of 9:15? And it came out almost equal. I think just slightly more than anything else. I think it was 8:30. People said, "Oh, 8:30." So I want you to tell me, put your comments, what time, give me a time that you prefer to see the West Ham Weekly on. I'm looking at the numbers and I think I've got roughly the same. But I'm not too sure. I won't know until about 24 hours after the show because people come in, they go out, they come back in again, etc. So, there's a good hardcore of people that watch the show on a regular basis. So tell me, people, 8 o'clock, 8:30, or back to 9:15, or throw in 9 o'clock if you prefer that as well. Okay. Let's see who else we've got. Thank you, Barry. Much appreciated. Good evening to you, GP. You're late. I'm almost finished. Anthony, 8:30. So let me write it down because no I'm going to remember. Right, 8:30, 9:15. One for 8:30. Montana. Stel, I told you we needed a left back in before we signed Wan-Bissaka. You said no. No, it's not that I said no. I said because we gave Cresswell the extra year, I knew we weren't going to get another left back in. Don't go. You need to keep. Well, the Hammer's dad. Joan, I like 8:30. That's another one for 8:30. Jonathan, 24 hours a day. West Ham boys. Darren, whatever time. Thank you, mate. Much appreciated. Aaron, 9 o'clock. You have to be different, don't you, Aaron? Cheers. Bill, 8:30. Tony Ryan, 8:30. Tony, 8 o'clock. I'm not reading out your songs, Danny boy. Hammer 84, 9 o'clock. That's 2 for 9 o'clock. SLM, 8:30. 8:30 is winning. Josiah, 8:15. I'm going to take that as an 8:30, mate. Where have you been? I mean, where have you been? I've done an hour and a half. I'm about to go offline. Call yourself a moderator. What's going on here? She is late on parade. GP's late on parade, and so's Hammerette. Darren, 9 o'clock. Another one for 9. Shaky, another one for 9. GP, 8:30 or 9. Well, I've put wrong one. 8:30 or 8:30 is winning at the moment. 12:45. Trudge, 9 o'clock. 8:30 works for me from Howard. John, another one for 8:30. You can't vote twice, by the way. That's cheating. Whatever's best for me. Thank you, Paul. Gary, I'm 5 hours behind. 9 o'clock your time works better for me. 9 o'clock is competing with 8:30. But Chris, 8:30. James, another 8:30 there. Whatever you want. Thank you, mate. Ronnie, how are you, mate? 9 o'clock. Toha, 8:30. And saying, but whatever works. Thank you, mate. Much appreciated. 8 or 8:30 from Daniela. So I'll put both those down. 8 p.m. from Stephen. 9 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 9 o'clock. Oh, 9 o'clock is catching up. 8 p.m. my time. Okay, 8:30. 8:30. Why not use the poll feature? Because I can't go into, because I'm doing this on a different platform. It means I'll have to come out of it, go into YouTube. I need someone to do this for me. Go into YouTube, set up the poll in order for you guys to see it. Can you do 3:30 a.m.? No. Brian, 9 o'clock. Whatever time is best. 9 o'clock. It looks like 9 o'clock is beginning to take Maltese Hammer. 9 o'clock to 15 a.m. 8:45. I'm going to use that as a 9, actually. 10 p.m. only in the leap year. 9 o'clock, 8:30. Christ. 9 o'clock and 8:30. It looks like it's going to be between. You know what? I might go for 8. Someone said 8:45 earlier on. 9 o'clock, 8:30. That's it. Stop. 8:22. Simon, 9 o'clock. 8:30, 8:30, 8:30, 9:15, 8:30, 8:30, 9:15, 8:30. Right, okay. 8:30 it's going to be from this point on. But you know me, it's going to be any time between 8:30 and 8:45. But I guess that'll be all right. Good evening to you, Nick. Nick, stop spending your money. Hamrit said I farted. If only I had moderators to help me do that. I know, Aaron. I know. I should be looking out for new moderators. Yeah, harsh but true. Yeah, he's right though. He's right. 8:45 is a good compromise, so I might do that. 8:45 and we call it quits. Thank you, people. Much appreciated. But Stel, you're always late, so it'll be 10 o'clock. Right. That is it. That's all, people. Thank you all very much. The first time, as I said, that I've done an 8:30 show, but by the looks of it, I'm going to have a look at, I'm going to top these all up, but maybe just to be awkward, an 8:45 it might be. Shut up, Ronnie. You've already voted. So thank you all very much. So just a quick rundown of what I said. So in terms of the game, we talked about the game. We talked about the players that played well, etc., etc. We did a match review. And then I talked about the youth academy, about the under-21s winning. The under-18s are up to speed as well now. We've got loads of players on loan who are doing reasonably well. International break, we've got several players on out on international break. All we've got to do now is hope that they all come back fit and raring to go. And then we said goodbye to Kurt. We said goodbye to JWP. We said goodbye to Cornet. And we're saying a weird farewell to Nayef Aguerd, who basically fucked up our window by not leaving any sooner. And the news is, apparently, we're in for, or we are looking at, Joel Matip as being the prospective player that might be coming in. My understanding is that he will go through quite an intense medical if we do sign him. And it will look like either a short deal or a pay as you play deal. So look out more on that. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for doing the live vote. Really appreciated. And have a good week. And I will see you all very soon.